Hi, my friends. I'm just gonna figure out how to get Kai on here. So I've asked her to join, but I think I may have to do the other page, which is fine. Hi, guys. I have never done live before. I should have probably put some makeup on before this, but that's okay. Fuck it. We're here anyway. Um, Bye.
Hi.
I figured it
I
out.
had to go on my other account, so
It's okay.
I hope that sounds okay.
I was yeah, I was toggling between both of them. I was like, is it this one or the other one?
Yeah.
But hi, welcome to the IG Live.
I haven't been live on Instagram, so I was like, oh God, I hope we can figure it out and there's no like technical difficulties or
No,
anything.
we got here
Yeah.
and it was pretty seamless.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess I'm going to start with a few things.
Mhm.
Who are you and why we should listen to you?
Okay. Good question. So my name's Kaiallison. I run Kinetics by Kai, so online coaching with more of a focus on nutrition, optimizing nutrition for both athletes and general population. So I'm an accredited sports nutritionist with the Sports Nutrition Association, so registered and insured. My background's in science, so I'm very science focused in my approach to both nutrition and training, but my special interest is obviously nutrition,
Yeah.
and a little bit of gut health. So I have my bachelor's in science, honors as well, and then in biological sciences, and then I just put a pause on my PhD in microbiology to sort of pursue this full time.
Yeah, because the PhD is like full time,
It's
right?
full time for at least 4 years.
Yeah.
So it was a bit hectic to be juggling both, and I don't really want to go part time and be doing it for about 10 years.
And
um,
what were you going to do your PhD on? Well, what are you doing it on?
so it was largely focused on how do I word this? Antibiotic resistance. So we were looking into how to use something called bacteriophage, which are viruses that only infect bacteria, as an alternative treatment for antibiotic resistant infections. So it's used around the world, mostly in just clinical trials or compassionate treatment in Australia. So it's like a last resort for those who are really sick, really close to death, and antibiotics aren't working anymore. So we're
Yeah.
essentially introducing them with a virus that only kills a very specific strain of bacteria in their bodies. And then I was towards the end getting involved in a little bit of gut health stuff, a little bit of gut microbiome stuff with the HMRI here in the Hunter. But yeah, I put that on a little bit of a pause, and we'll see if I go back to it or if I end up looking to doing, kind of looking more into doing a master's in dietetics, but it depends what happens over the next year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Well done.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I have a few questions for you, just
Mhm.
based on like the questions that came through,
Yeah.
and to kind of keep it around like gut
Yeah.
health. And I
Yeah.
wanted to start with like, what is gut health, and what are some signs of like poor gut health? Because I think a lot of people think like bloating,
Hmm.
um, but we know like it's not necessarily bad to be like have a slight
Yeah.
bloating or to be farting or something, but
Yeah.
it's like what is what is
What
bad,
is
like.
bad? Yeah. Yeah, so I recently did a little free ebook for gut health, and I kind of looked into defining what exactly good and bad gut health is, so to speak. And there's no clear definition. I guess it's just the absence of any GI issues that interfere with your day-to-day life. And I think a big one is proper absorption and digestion of essential nutrients, vitamins, minerals, all that kind of stuff, and food in general.
Yeah.
But I guess you can therefore define gut health as not being able to absorb those things, as well as constant, like really like all the time throughout the week or very often that you are having things like bloating, constipation, diarrhea, just general abdominal discomfort or pain. But if you're having that, occasionally, it's pretty normal. Like a lot of people, like no one can put their hand up and say, wow, I've never been bloated or I've never been constipated. Like it's pretty normal to have it every so often.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of people just don't eat right and then they think they've got bad gut health issues. And it's like, well, do you get enough fiber? Probably not. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like that, but there's no real clear definition of, oh my God, I have bad gut health or I have good gut health. Like there are signs of it, but there's no like definition that this means, oh, I'm perfect. But like if you rarely experience those things, you feel like you have pretty healthy bowel movements, and then you probably do have good gut health if you feel like most things don't upset or trigger your gut as
Yeah.
well.
And I like what you touched on there in terms of like just not eating well enough
Mm.
is really a big one thing. And I can like resonate with that because there was a point in time when I ate really poorly.
Yeah,
And this was probably like 2017,
yeah,
16. Like, and I would be like, oh, like what's wrong with my stomach? Like I have these bloating. And I was like, it's because I'm eating a lot of like processed
a
stuff
lot
and
of
I'm not
crap.
drinking
Yeah,
enough water. Yeah, and I'm not eating enough vegetables. Like I was probably
Mm.
like flat out eating like 100 grams of like vegetables per day. So,
Yeah.
where would we start in terms of like eliminating things, and what would we eliminate if we were looking at like optimizing our gut health?
I think the first thing I ask a lot of my clients if they come to me with any sort of gut health issues is, are you having enough fiber? I feel like that's a really basic thing that's often overlooked because I had a client come to me with really chronic gut health issues and just wanted to see if we could work on things or if she needed further referral to a dietitian or a gastroenterologist or another specialist. But she didn't know what fiber was. So she had a coach for about a year before coming to me and she was on this really rigid meal plan and she had no idea what fiber was. And that was something we had to work on first because that was just like the basics, like let's work on getting fiber. We can't go, we can't go, if someone's on like 10 grams of fiber a day, we can't go straight to 30. It causes a lot of gastrointestinal upset. Like even jumping up by 10 grams all at once can be a little bit upsetting. Fiber is usually the first thing I look at. And also if they're consistent with it. So if they're having days of like 10 grams and then 30 grams and then 20 then 40, like it can be quite a bit of a, like it's a lot for your gut to handle. Like we don't know how much fiber we're getting today. And I think the second thing is, I don't know, as someone in their 20s, like a lot of people just go out binge drinking on the weekends.
Mm,
Uh, Pretty not good for your gut for the most part. But like if you're complaining, oh my God, I'm always so bloated on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning after going out drinking, well, there's obviously a reason for
yeah,
that. Especially if
yeah.
you're the kind of person to like go out drinking, have like 8 drinks, and then come home and like order Macca's or something like that. Like, obviously, that's not going to feel good the next day, clearly. Like, nothing about your body's going to enjoy
Especially
that.
even like going along the lines of like party
Yeah,
drugs,
yeah,
like we all
yeah,
have experienced it, like the feeling of like the stomach kind of like eating itself, and then they'll wake up on Monday and Tuesday and be like, what the fuck's going on with my
yeah.
gut health? And you're like, well,
Well, you do
there's
drugs.
so
Yeah,
this happens,
yeah.
yeah, cool. So it's more of like looking at like a good point that you said there with fiber is like,
Mm,
I think it's so important to see like a structure with your food on day to
yeah,
day, because then you know what to expect. Because like you said, if you have like 10 grams one day and then 40 grams the next, of
yeah,
course you're going to be
mhm,
bloated that next
yeah,
day. Yeah. Um. Also, I was going to say, yeah. Okay. So all right. So supplementation when it comes to gut health. I
mhm,
know that we love talking about
yeah,
this, but there is a lot of obviously supplements out there. And I'm sure that a lot of people watching this have used a lot of them. And
yeah.
are there actually ones that are beneficial, or is it more so should we be looking first at the food that we're eating?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with almost everything, it's like look at the food that you're eating first before turning to supplements. I mean, one thing I really, really hate, like it just really ticks me off is greens powders. Because a lot of people are promoting them as if they're gonna like save their guts, but realistically, it's like just take a multivitamin and hit your fiber. If you're like someone who maybe is neurodivergent, for example, and you really do struggle to get like a proper balance of nutrients, micronutrients and everything, then maybe, but it's usually better off to just have something like a multivitamin than a greens powder because they also taste bad, right?
Yeah.
But I think like a large portion of supplementation for gut health is just marketing. It's just taking advantage of the gut health trend, which has really been prevalent the last year, but in terms of research, the past 20 years, it's really blown up. I feel like each year there's more and more papers published about it, so it becomes more interesting. And a lot of people read papers but they don't read papers, they read the title and then they kind of take that. But I think that a lot of supplements companies make a lot of really bold claims about what it does for gut health. I think some are good, some are bad, some are just a lot of like full of a lot of filler ingredient. But I really think and the greens powder is also just a lot of artificial sweeteners as well,
Mm.
which aren't always the best, but we can get
Which
into that
kind of goes
as well.
against the whole idea of like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
like,
of
well,
something
you're
good for your gut.
balancing it out with greens, right, in a powdered form where all the fiber's removed, that's the part that's confusing to me, is you'd probably be just better off taking like some Metamucil because at least it has the fiber, right?
Yeah,
And then you're also balancing it with probably colors, additives, and artificial sweeteners, which depending on the person, depending on the sweetener, can have different effects.
yeah.
But it's very much something where you look at the person's diet first. I think sometimes probiotics and prebiotics can be beneficial, but at least probiotics is something that a lot of people can get from their diet, unless they really hate probiotic foods, I suppose.
So tell me the difference. Tell me, does that even make sense?
Tell me, yeah.
I have prep brain right now. So tell me the difference between a prebiotic and a
Yeah.
probiotic.
So probiotic is the bacteria that's in your gut. That's the stuff that's making your gut microbiome flourish. And I like to think of the prebiotic as the food for the probiotics. So it really is just the food to nourish the probiotics so that they're thriving.
Yeah,
So they're both important. But probiotics are the actual bacteria. So that's stuff that's in like yogurt. A lot of yogurt you'll find on the back, it contains however much milk, kefir, and then you've got different bacteria in things like sauerkraut and kimchi. So I really like yogurt. I really like kimchi. So I tend to have a lot of those. So I don't find the need to supplement.
yeah,
I think especially as uh, someone who goes to the gym, I have a lot of like YoPro that has enough. That has enough of the probiotics for me, as well as just having a lot of Korean food and kimchi pretty often as well,
yeah.
is quite helpful. And then prebiotics is just the stuff that nourishes those bacteria. So depending on the bacteria, it's different things. But essentially, if you're getting a high fiber diet, that's going to be nourishing them properly.
Okay. So you said that probiotics are like like kimchi and stuff, or prebiotics like kimchi.
Probiotics.
Okay.
Yep. So they contain the probiotics, like all sorts of
Yeah.
bacteria. Yeah.
Okay. So like supplementation of probiotics or like prebiotics.
Depends. So I found someone came to me recently asking about a specific product, and it was essentially only had the one strain of one species of something called lactobacillus, which is really common in yogurt. So if you're having a lot of yogurt or a lot of kefir, and I was like, that's actually kind of useless to be taking,
Yeah.
unless you really didn't get dairy in your diet or anything that contains that bacteria. It's probably not worth it. But if it's something that, maybe one of the other, bifidobacterium or streptococcus or something that you're not getting, or if it's a supplement that contains multiple, it can be beneficial. But once again, I think if you do get enough in your diet, then it's one of those things where if you got the money,
Yeah.
sure, but like it's not one of my most recommended supplements actually.
Yeah. And prebiotics. I feel like a lot of people supplement with prebiotics.
I don't think it's necessary if your diet's good, because
Yeah.
prebiotics is really just the food that you're eating:
Yeah.
fruit, veg, oats, you know, nuts, seeds, all that really healthy stuff, right? So if you're getting enough of that, there's no real need for supplementation. Maybe if you're in a hectic deficit in prep, maybe, and you feel like I feel like the gut does sort of struggle a bit if you've been in a long-term deficit or if you're on a pretty slim meal plan. But for most people, most of the time, that get a varied diet of fruit, veg, all the good stuff, then not usually necessary. I'd probably be more inclined to have probiotic supplements than prebiotic supplements if your diet's good.
Cool. And then and then even with probiotic, if you're eating enough of the stuff, you shouldn't necessarily need it.
Yeah, absolutely not. Like I have yogurt every day. I have kimchi pretty often. Some people really like sauerkraut. There's a little
Yeah.
bit of probiotics in cheese, depends on the cheese.
Yeah.
Things like pickled, a lot of fermented foods. So if you love, I know a lot of people hate them though. So people hate like all that kind of stuff. But I love it, so I have it pretty often and I enjoy it. I mean, it's low calorie too. It's a pretty good snack to be having. So
Yeah.
I find that I get more than enough. And if you feel like if you really hate all that stuff, you hate yogurt, you hate kefir, you hate kimchi, you hate sauerkraut, all that kind of stuff, then it could
Yeah.
be beneficial certainly to
Yeah.
be getting them.
And that was
But
one
not.
that was one of the questions. It was like, are probiotic supplements useful, and or eat probiotic foods? Perfect. You've answered that question.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends on the person and what they're
Yeah.
eating. But if you're finding that you eat junk and you're probably not going to change that, then maybe, yeah, it could be beneficial.
I mean, we should probably
Yeah.
change that first, though. Um,
Exactly.
okay. What else was there in terms of gut health, bloating? That was pretty much. If there's any questions that you guys have, oh, no questions. I have that. Oh yeah. No.
I get a lot of questions about artificial
Yeah.
sweeteners. That's
Yeah. Let's
like
go
one
there.
I get pretty often. Because I put a question box up a while ago and I got back to a lot of them, but a lot of people individually asked about artificial sweeteners.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a tough one. Like it depends on the sweetener and it depends on the person. So personally, I react really badly to Monster Energy drinks. The erythritol in it is not happy with my gut, and it's not like it's a super unnatural sweetener because our bodies actually naturally produce it, and it is one of those more natural sweeteners, I suppose you could call it. But my gut hates it. It hates it. It hates that one and sucralose. But aspartame I can have every day, no problem. I find for most people it's really a trial and error thing. See like what works for you. But as far as evidence goes about it being bad for gut health, there's just not enough conclusive evidence that this sweetener is really damaging for gut health or whatever. There was that whole thing about aspartame coming that came out recently with the World Health Organization, saying it's considered was it a class 2B carcinogenic, so maybe slightly possibly carcinogenic. But people who freak out over that, you can go back and look at the actual class 1A carcinogens and go, okay, sun, tobacco, alcohol, really
Yeah.
processed, highly processed meats, things like that. And usually they'll have all those things. They'll have a heap of like really processed meats and go out without sunscreen on, but then, oh no, aspartame. But that paper caused a lot of debate in the scientific community. So I would take, a lot of the things that you see online about artificial sweetness with a grain of salt. And if it helps you curb sugar cravings and you enjoy it and your gut doesn't react badly to it, then keep having it. Like you shouldn't be freaking out about it.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those things that people are like, do get really upset about, because it's like we had the whole it it causes like insulin spikes and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like it from my personal opinion and what I've seen with my clients, like if it helps you curb that craving and you're only going to have like one thing of
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
artificial sweetened thing per day, it's not a big deal. I think it becomes an issue when you're like having
Yeah.
multiple things per day. Like you're getting up, you're having a pre-workout that's artificially
Hmm.
sweetened, then you're having a coffee with artificial sweeteners in it, then you're going to have like some lunch like with the fake carb
Yeah.
thing in there, and then you
Yeah.
have sauce that's artificial. Like that's going to become an issue.
Yeah.
So like that's also something that I feel like in my space, in the bodybuilding space, people get caught
Yeah, for
up
sure.
in because they're trying to find low calorie alternatives to everything. But then
Hmm.
you get this like mad bloating and distension and really poor gut health, and it's
Yeah.
because of that. And like
Yeah.
we've all been
Yeah.
down there. Like, and then you add protein bars on top of that, and then
Protein
you know
bars is such a big one. Like I know you're not supposed to. Most people have come to me and said, "Oh my God, I ate two," and I'm like, "No, don't eat two." Like a lot of the protein bars, they're great. Like in a pinch, I used to work at a gym when I was like really hungry and needing something quick. They'd be good, but a lot of the time, don't have more than two. Your stomach will tell you to not do that again.
yeah,
um,
exactly. That's like
I
one
think
thing
because
I
they're so condensed in their artificial sweeteners. But as you said, if you're having multiple things all day, like it may be important to look at something else. Like, are you getting enough whole foods, and are you eating enough carbohydrates that are keeping you full, and fiber and things like that. But obviously, yeah, if you're mixing all sorts of artificial sweeteners all day, then I guess maybe if you don't have any gut issues, that may not be the biggest problem. But I know a lot of people that do get pretty bloated from the amount of all sorts of stuff.
stuff in there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a question that you may be able to answer. I think it said, does artificial, no, does gut health affect thyroid?
Yeah, I don't like know 100% about I know a little bit about the gut brain axis. I spoke about it recently. But as far as thyroid goes, I'd assume there would be a correlation with hormones. I'm not 100% sure. I know it has a bit of I know that I think a pretty common one I get, I guess, off topic of thyroids and hormone health, because that's just not my area of expertise.
It's so fun.
I'm not going to talk about it if I don't know about it,
Yeah,
because I'll have a look, but I actually don't know.
yeah,
I know a lot of people who take PPIs, so proton pump inhibitors for gastric reflux. I know that's pretty common, especially people above 40 that start to get gastric reflux, stuff like that. That can really have quite the impact on your gut. My mum, for example, was taking them for 20 years. You're not supposed to take them for 20 years, and she got to the point of not being able to absorb a lot of nutrients, which
yeah.
make her, yeah, and she's still struggling. So she had surgery, still struggles, has to get infusions, all kinds of stuff. So a lot of long-term medication use, depending on the medication, things like antibiotics, can cause a lot of nutrient absorption issues down the line. So that's something to be aware of. Maybe not, directly related to
That's so
thyroids,
fun.
but
There
something else
was
that.
actually a question about that. Wait. After antibiotics, what would you do to get health back on track in terms of gut health?
Yeah. So one thing I want to say about antibiotics first is, because it was my topic of interest, right, for my
Your thing.
PhD. It's my thing. Only take them if you need to. If you are mildly sick and you don't know what it is, if you think you have a cold or a flu or a viral infection, don't take it, because it's not going to do anything. I find a lot of people take them and then they maybe not finish the whole course, or maybe they didn't need them in the first place. Like, there's something that can save your life, but if you don't need it, if it's not actually going to work, if you just find them in the cupboard, don't take them like that. Like, responsible antibiotic use is pretty important. But if you take them, I think I got a question about how long your gut takes to recover from it, and that very much depends on the length of time you are taking it. I do always advise that you take the full course of antibiotics that you were prescribed, just to make sure nothing was left behind that could be antibiotic resistant and overgrow. But as far as gut health goes, so antibiotics work, and one of their issues is that they kill everything, right? So they don't just kill, the bad bacteria that's overgrowing. They kill everything. So they kill your good bacteria too. So it leaves your gut in a bit of a state of being a bit bare, a bit naked, right? So I guess the first thing to do once you're, depending on what sickness you have, once you're able to eat again, is to, slowly work on, once again, increasing that fiber intake, having probiotics if your stomach can handle them. This is probably the situation where probiotics and prebiotic supplementation may come in useful, but mostly probiotic supplementation, as you want to reintroduce that to the gut microbiome. So that would be a really good example of a situation where supplementation would actually be really helpful. But I think it comes down to the basics, once again, of hydration, fiber, introducing whole foods, maybe first introducing more easily digestible carbs that your stomach can handle. Once again, it depends on what you had. If you had a really bad gastrointestinal illness, it's probably going to take quite a lot longer. It depends what you were taking antibiotics for, if it was for some sort of pneumonia infection, or if it was for a gut health issue, for a gastrointestinal infection. But it does come down to staying hydrated, getting enough sleep, having some nutrient dense fluids, probably hydrating with things like Powerade or Hydrolyte. And, if you feel the need to, probably do have some probiotic and prebiotic supplements to reintroduce that good bacteria back into the gut, so you don't get an overgrowth of bad
Yeah,
bacteria.
perfect. Yeah, because I got antibiotics the other day for my knee when I had PRP, and I was like, I don't actually think I need them,
Yeah.
so I didn't take them because I was like,
Yeah, because they only work against bacterial infections. So I
yeah,
got I got very sick about, would have been almost 3 years ago now, and the doctor almost gave me antibiotics, but he said no, I think this is viral. So like, it's probably best that if they do think it's viral, if they've done a test and they do think it's viral, to avoid them, because they're not going to do anything. They'll only
yeah,
work if it's a bacterial infection. But if you get really mildly sick with some sort of bacterial infection, you don't see it going further, it's probably best not to take them, not just for the sake of antibiotic resistance, but for the sake of your gut, because a lot of medication can just destroy your gut, even if it's better in the long term for your general health than preventing, getting pneumonia or some
Yeah,
sort of worse off infection. But I think it's just about being careful about, do you actually need it, or did you just find them in the cupboard, or did you get prescribed them and you don't actually think you need them? Are they a preventative thing?
yeah, for sure. And I like on medication that does disrupt gut.
Mm.
It's like Nurofen is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big
Um,
one. A lot of ibuprofens and a lot of painkillers
yeah.
just really aren't fun on the gut. But if you're in pain and you need it, then you kind of got to just take it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next question was we had a question come up here. I eat clean, but I still have tummy issues.
um this is a situation where like so much
Yeah,
context is needed. Like, what do you define as clean? Because if you
yeah,
define it as clean and you're eating the same thing 7 days a week and you're not getting any nutrient variety, or if you're eating in a deficit for a long period of time with, once again, you're not hitting your nutrients, then it would make sense that you still have stomach issues. But that being said, if you feel like you get adequate fiber, adequate nutrients in your diet, then it's probably time to go see a specialist, get a referral from your GP, see if you could be, intolerant to gluten or dairy or something like that. So it would be a situation of going to see someone about it, and not looking for information necessarily online or on
mm.
Instagram from gut health specialists.
Because I'll
Yeah,
just be
like,
like, here's his supplement.
yeah, so like, I've got a client right now who's taking a blood test to see if she's gluten intolerant. I've got a few clients trying to figure out, what may be wrong with I've got a lot of clients who just figured out they weren't getting enough fiber
Yeah,
or they weren't consistent up with their fiber, even though they thought they were. But that, I think, this gets to a point where if you really feel like you've done everything and you eat well, then maybe go see a doctor. It could be a mild intolerance, that it's something that you're eating every day and it's just not agreeing with you.
for sure. And I was gonna say something, but I forgot. Fuck me dead. Um, um, I'm
Oh, you just dropped out. I'm not sure. I can't hear you now. Oh, God. Oh, are we all good? Okay, I can hear you now.
Do you know like timeout thing? It's like you've
Oh,
spent too much time on
okay.
Instagram and it logs me out. Um, we're there. So I'm celiac. I found out when I was like 18.
Yeah.
And it's been like a lot of people message me and they're like, "How I'm celiac, like how do you manage your diet and things like that?" And I think like when it comes down to like it's like you're either really
Mm,
sick for a really long time and ruining your gut and have like all
yeah.
of these chronic health issues long term, or you eat a gluten-free diet. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna take that
Yeah,
gluten-free diet
absolutely.
like all the time.
Yeah, and for
I've
some people, they are just gluten intolerant, and it's like, oh, I can have a little bit, and I'll be not great, but I'll be back. I'll be back to normal the next
yeah,
day. Whereas for people like you, it's like, yeah, absolutely not worth it, and life threatening in some cases. But it can be hard for people who find out later in life, and they have to deal with that switch, because it can just be so random. You can just get, oh, look, I'm not reacting to this anymore. Let's go see a doctor. Turns out I'm celiac.
yeah, it was super weird. I was like really, I was doing nursing at the same time I was doing study, so I was already like burning the candle at both ends,
Yeah,
and I was like super skinny. I was like
yeah.
49 kilos or something, and I was like, why am I so sick and so tired all the time? And I was just like, what the fuck's going on? And I went to the doctor, ended up being celiac, and it just happened like
Like all of
literally.
a sudden.
It felt like it was all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But
I've
and
got
then
a
you
I've
go.
got a client who has mammalian meat allergies, so all of a sudden she just found out she just can't eat red meat. Any sort of cross contamination she has to be extremely careful with, like it causes a
That is
full allergic
wild.
reaction. It was really like random too. The doctors aren't sure what caused it, but pretty scary to
It is
find that
scary.
out.
That is. Okay, so I had a question about ashwagandha.
Okay, yeah,
It is something that a lot of like, and I probably think that I've probably told too many people to take it because I've only found out recently that it's not great for everyone.
yeah. So my opinion, I just don't agree with people taking it long term. There's a lot of studies done on liver toxicity with ashwagandha when it's taken long term. What long term means is still to be
Yeah,
defined, but I wouldn't agree with taking it, for like a year or so. Not so much, I don't really know what impact it has on the gut. It's more on the liver. It can have a few just issues. It can just prevent you detoxifying and doing its processes normally.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with it in general. I think it can be really, a lot of people swear by it. I took it for a little bit. I was, told to take it when stressed. But it's one of those ones that maybe doesn't have enough evidence regarding its safety as opposed to its efficacy. But it's once again something that everyone reacts differently to. I just recommend not taking it for too long
Yeah.
at a time.
Yeah. So only take as needed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sort of like that. But like, don't take it for like a year straight, I
Yeah.
think is, or like for multiple years, and we don't exactly know what the proper dosage is, right? Like, there's a lot of supplements coming out on the market that are becoming increasingly popular, but I feel like by the time they get popular, there's something else, something else that needs to be studied. Like, I'll be interested
Yeah.
to see when there's a few more studies on a lot of greens powders that are popular at the moment. Like, I got hit with so many Bloom ads last year. Bloom, is that what it's called? The greens powders. It's really popular over in the US.
No
I
idea.
get I had to block them. Like, they were all on my page. But it'll be interesting to see when a lot of studies come out about the long term efficacy and safety of some of these things.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
as far as ashwagandha goes, no idea about its impact on gut health
Yeah.
per se, just its impact on the
On.
liver.
Um, and it is, I feel like with this one, I think a lot of people take it because of like that
Mm,
stress kind of
yeah,
relieving thing. What you could also look at instead of like taking a tablet for these types of things is like, what am I doing in the hours leading up to
yeah,
bed? Like, am I actually doing any like health promoting, stress
yeah,
relieving exercises? Like, do I get up in the morning, do like journaling or meditating or something
yeah.
like that instead of being like, I'm stressed, here's
Yeah,
tablet. Like I
yeah.
feel like
Hopefully, I'll sleep. Yeah, no,
hopefully I'll sleep.
I've been on a bit of a journey recently of trying to fix my sleep. I have sleep apnea, but untreated sleep apnea. But just generally, I didn't have a good sleep schedule
Yeah,
because I wake up early, but then my brain doesn't shut off until like 10 or 11. So I've done the thing recently of turning off the blue light on my computer and my phone from, I think it automatically switches off at like 7. It doesn't turn back on till 7 in the morning. And reading before bed and not just getting engrossed in watching maths or whatever all night and getting distracted. I think having a proper bedtime routine. I mean, I've only been like on a good streak for about 3 weeks.
yeah.
That's
That's
been
good.
really
That's
helpful.
a long time.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. As someone who, the one box I can't tick with my health and wellness lifestyle is consistent
Yeah.
sleep. So I've been pretty happy with that. But I think, yeah, having that good wind down routine is something to look at
Yeah.
first, and then maybe something like melatonin, and then yeah, ashwagandha if I guess you need it. But once again, yeah, short term. See how it goes for you. I mean, I feel some.
Magnesium? Would you say magnesium for like pre-sleep or?
Yeah, I used to. I know my mum takes it for, I know a few people who take it for restless
Yeah.
legs. My partner takes it for restless legs sometimes. I have a mild form of Tourette's or motor tics, and it does help with that. I think it can be helpful, especially if you aren't getting enough in your diet or you're not absorbing it properly. I think it can be helpful. I think that is actually one of the helpful supplements to have before bed. But I'm not going to bed with a massive concoction of supplements. I take my pre-workout in the morning, my creatine, and at the moment a multivitamin, and I'm good to
Yeah,
go.
that's it. What other thing I was going to say was like stress, the impacts of stress
Mhm.
on gut health. Like, what do you know about that? Because I know a lot of people like you'll find, and sometimes people don't make that connection between
Mhm.
I've had a really stressful day, I'm just like super wound up, really jacked, whatever, and then they're like
Yeah.
bloated, and they're like, "What am I doing? Is it my food?" And you're like, "It's probably your head."
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of talk about the gut brain axis, and I understand how it works one way and not necessarily the other, because it's something where research is really booming in that area at the moment, and I probably haven't read enough papers on it. But as far as like I think stress affects your whole body. It affects everything in your body. I think people sometimes forget that your body is one big interconnected sack of meat and everything's related, right?
Yeah,
So I think like a big thing with stress is if you're stressed and you're making bad choices, like you're drinking or you're eating bad or you don't have time to make nutritious meals or whatever, then that can obviously affect your gut health. I think stress can obviously cause some inflammation, so you may have some sort of maybe slight, I think it does have an impact on your gut bacteria negatively. And I think it can delay gastric emptying. So that could explain a bit of bloating and constipation. Or it can do the opposite, speeds it up too much, diarrhea.
Yeah.
But I think it can have a little bit of an impact. I'm not sure to the extent of that impact. But I think that's, once again, you look at the source. Obviously, you can't always solve being stressed, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, okay, no more
Yeah.
stress, that's affecting my gut. But it is one of those things that's multidimensional. It affects everything in your body.
And it's
Uh,
just like, I feel like to wrap this one up, because we'll keep it short and sweet, and I think we've covered a lot of
yeah.
things, is like before supplementing, look
Hmm.
at some lifestyle changes that you need to make in
Absolutely.
terms of like food, sleep,
Yeah.
stress management, um, without trying to reach for something straight away. Because I know it's like the easy answer for everyone to be
Mhm.
like, oh, I have this problem, this supplement's going to
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah. And I think people are very inclined to spend I think most supplements, for that kind of stuff are at least like $60 nowadays. Like, they're very inclined to spend however much on supplements. And I think it's, once again, our human societal issues of, I want a quick fix and I don't want to do the hard work. I don't want to do the healthy diet. I don't want to invest in a coach.
Yeah.
I don't want to be held accountable. I want to have a supplement that maybe tastes good and then it solves everything, and I don't have to look at being stressed or look at eating
Yeah.
healthy. I think for some people it does come down to just wanting a quick fix, like they do maybe with weight loss. They want to lose weight really quickly, and then it just obviously doesn't work. They can't adhere to it. It's very much one of those things where, yeah, once again, there's not a whole lot of supplements I recommend to clients. I think people who recommend a wide variety of supplements and they can't explain to the client how they work, that's a
Yeah.
red flag. So if you're recommending like 10 different supplements to gut health, maybe take a step back and be like, do I know what all these things do? Or is my
Yeah.
client got good nutrition? Or am I just trying to, I don't know, sell through my affiliate code?
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing is like be wary of like where people are selling, like, why people are selling something or
Yeah.
pushing a supplement of some
Yeah.
sort.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes it is an affiliate code type thing. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for joining me on my chat.
Thank you. That was fun. Really
I
appreciate it.
was just shooting
Uh,
questions at you, but
I love it.
thanks guys for joining. Hopefully I'll be able to do another one of these at some stage.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Have a good
Bye.
evening. Bye.
You too.